Chosen one, before you move another step, pause and listen with your spirit. There are moments when God allows you to sense what your eyes cannot yet see, and there are seasons when discernment becomes more important than emotion. You may be standing near someone who speaks beautifully, smiles warmly, and appears harmless, yet something inside you keeps telling you to slow down. Do not ignore that feeling. Not every person who enters your life is assigned to stay. Some arrive to teach you, some to test you, some to distract you, and some simply reveal what you still need to surrender to God. So today, be careful, be prayerful, and be discerning about the man whose presence has been troubling your spirit. Chosen one, this is not a message meant to make you afraid of every man who approaches you. It is not a command to become suspicious, bitter, or isolated. It is an invitation to become discerning. There is a difference between fear and discernment. Fear makes you run from everything. Discernment teaches you what deserves your attention and what deserves your distance. Fear sees danger everywhere. Discernment quietly notices patterns. Fear reacts to appearances. Discernment watches character. And sometimes, the greatest warning is not something dramatic. Sometimes it is simply the repeated feeling that something does not align. You may have been asking God for clarity. You may have said, Lord, if this person is not for me, reveal it. If this relationship is not right, show me. If there is something I cannot see, open my eyes. And now you are beginning to notice things you previously explained away. The conversations feel different. The energy changes when you enter the room. His words and his actions do not always agree. He may tell you that he cares, but his behavior leaves you confused. He may promise consistency, yet constantly give you uncertainty. He may say he respects you, but repeatedly cross boundaries you clearly established. Chosen one, pay attention to patterns. One mistake does not define a person. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone has moments of weakness. Everyone can speak poorly, react badly, or misunderstand something. But when the same behavior repeats again and again, you should stop calling it an accident. Character is often revealed through repetition. If he continually lies and then asks you to trust him, notice it. If he continually disrespects you and then expects immediate forgiveness, notice it. If he continually disappears and returns whenever he wants something from you, notice it. If he only values you when you are useful to him, notice it. You do not need to hate him to recognize what is happening. You do not need revenge to walk away. You do not need an argument to establish distance. And you do not need his permission to protect your peace. Chosen one, there may be a man in your life who has mastered the art of saying exactly what you want to hear. He knows your wounds. He knows your dreams. He knows the words that make you feel understood. He may have studied your heart so carefully that you mistake his ability to describe you for his ability to love you. But remember this, knowing what hurts you is not the same as caring about your healing. Knowing your weaknesses is not the same as protecting your heart. Some people learn your vulnerabilities because they genuinely want to understand you. Others learn them because they want to know where your boundaries are weakest. That distinction matters. A person can sound spiritual and still lack spiritual character. A person can quote scripture and still manipulate. A person can speak about loyalty while secretly living in deception. A person can tell you that God brought you together while using spiritual language to pressure you into something you do not have peace about. Never let someone use the name of God to silence your discernment. If something is truly from God, it does not require manipulation. It does not require you to abandon wisdom. It does not require you to ignore obvious behavior. It does not require you to betray yourself. And it does not require you to live in constant confusion. Chosen one, the man you need to be careful about may not look dangerous. That is why discernment matters. Sometimes the person who causes the greatest damage is not the loudest person in the room. He may be charming. He may be successful. He may be generous. He may be respected by others. He may know how to make everyone around him believe that he is a good man. But you are not called to judge him by how he treats people who can benefit him. Watch how he treats people who cannot give him anything. Watch how he speaks to waiters, employees, strangers, family members, and people who disagree with him. Watch how he reacts when he is told no. Watch how he responds when he does not get his way. Watch what happens when his pride is challenged. Watch whether he takes responsibility when he is wrong, or immediately searches for someone else to blame. A man can control his image for a season. He cannot easily hide his character forever. Time reveals what performance conceals. Chosen one, maybe you have been tempted to make excuses for him because you see potential. You see what he could become. You see the wounded child behind his behavior. You see his good qualities. You remember the moments when he made you laugh, encouraged you, helped you, or made you feel special. And because of those moments, you keep forgiving what continues to hurt you. But hear this carefully, compassion does not require self-abandonment. You can understand someone's wounds without volunteering to become their target. You can pray for someone without remaining close to them. You can forgive someone without giving them the same access again. You can love someone and still recognize that they are not healthy for your life. There is maturity in understanding that forgiveness and access are not the same thing. Chosen one. Perhaps the warning is about a man who becomes uncomfortable when you grow. When you were uncertain, he felt secure. When you depended on his approval, he felt powerful. When you doubted yourself, he knew exactly how to influence you. But now something has changed. You have begun to discover your worth. You have begun to pray differently. You have begun to establish boundaries. You have begun to say no without explaining yourself for an hour. And suddenly, he does not like the new you. Ask yourself why. Why does your confidence threaten him? Why does your independence bother him? Why does your peace make him uncomfortable? Why does your relationship with God seem to irritate him? Why does he want you available, but not necessarily fulfilled? Why does he celebrate you only when your success does not exceed his? These questions may reveal more than his compliments ever could. Chosen one. Some people want access to your light without wanting to respect the source of it. They enjoy your kindness, your encouragement, your loyalty, your generosity, your ability to believe in people. But they do not necessarily want to see you become everything God has placed within you. They may not attack your destiny directly. They may simply distract you from it. They may keep you emotionally exhausted. They may create unnecessary drama. They may demand explanations for everything. They may make you question your intuition. They may keep you constantly trying to prove your love. They may create problems and then make you feel guilty for reacting to those problems. This is why peace matters. When you are constantly confused around someone, do not automatically assume that you need to try harder to understand them. Sometimes confusion is information. Chosen one. There is another sign you must notice: isolation. Be careful of the man who slowly tries to separate you from everyone who genuinely cares about you. He may tell you that your family does not understand you. He may convince you that your closest friends are jealous. He may insist that nobody truly wants the best for you except him. He may become offended whenever someone questions his behavior. At first, it may sound romantic. He may say, "It's us against the world." But healthy love does not require you to destroy every healthy relationship around you. Healthy love does not demand that you become isolated so one person can become your entire emotional universe. A controlling person often wants you to believe that independence is betrayal. He may turn your boundaries into accusations. He may call your wisdom disrespect. He may call your questions insecurity. He may call your desire for privacy secrecy. He may call your friendships inappropriate. Slowly, the goal becomes making you doubt yourself until his version of reality becomes the only version you trust. Chosen one. Do not surrender your ability to think. Do not surrender your ability to question. Do not surrender your ability to say, "This does not feel right." You are allowed to take your time. You are allowed to observe. You are allowed to change your mind. You are allowed to walk away from situations that disturb your peace. You are allowed to say no without giving someone a 20-page explanation. And if a man becomes angry simply because you have boundaries, that anger itself is information. A healthy person may feel disappointed by your boundary, but he will respect it. A manipulative person will attempt to punish you for having one. Chosen one. Maybe this man is not dangerous because of what he does when you are weak. Maybe the warning is about what he does when you become strong. Pay attention. Does he celebrate your growth? Does he encourage your purpose? Does he respect your relationship with God? Does he want you to become wiser, healthier, stronger, and more confident? Or does he constantly pull you back into old versions of yourself? There are people who prefer the version of you that had no boundaries because that version was easier to control. But you are not required to remain small so somebody else can remain comfortable. Chosen one. Do not confuse chemistry with confirmation. Just because you feel strongly about someone does not mean that the relationship is right. Intense emotions can exist in unhealthy relationships. Attraction can exist where compatibility does not. Passion can exist where peace is absent. You can miss someone who is not good for you. You can love someone who is not assigned to walk with you forever. Your feelings are real, but feelings are not always instructions. That is why you need wisdom. That is why you need time. That is why you need prayer. That is why you need to observe actions instead of building your entire future around promises. Promises are easy when nothing has been tested. Character becomes visible under pressure. Chosen one. Watch how he behaves when he is frustrated. Watch how he handles disappointment. Watch how he handles your success. Watch how he responds when you disagree. Watch how he behaves when nobody is watching. Watch whether his kindness disappears when he does not get something in return. Because anyone can perform goodness when an audience is present. But private character is where the truth begins to emerge. You may have been wondering why your spirit feels restless around him. Again, do not automatically label every uncomfortable feeling as a supernatural warning. Sometimes anxiety comes from our own experiences, fears, or unresolved wounds. This is why discernment should include prayer, wisdom, reflection, trusted counsel, and observable facts. God does not ask you to abandon reason in order to prove faith. If something concerns you, investigate the pattern. If something feels wrong, slow down. If you are uncertain, do not rush into a permanent decision simply because someone is pressuring you for an immediate answer. Time can expose what pressure tries to conceal. A good person who genuinely respects you will not need to manipulate you into making a decision before you are ready. Chosen one, the right person will not be threatened by your need for clarity. The right person will not demand that you trust him blindly. The right person will understand that trust is earned through consistency. He will not say, "If you loved me, you would trust me." He will show you why trust is reasonable. He will not demand access to every part of your life. He will build a relationship where transparency becomes natural rather than forced. And when he makes a mistake, he will not simply apologize because he wants the consequences to disappear. He will change the behavior that caused the apology to become necessary. That is the difference between remorse and performance. Chosen one, perhaps you have been asking why this person keeps returning. Every time you create distance, he comes back with promises. Every time you begin healing, he sends a message. Every time you start moving forward, he reminds you of the memories you shared. Do not automatically interpret someone's return as confirmation that they belong in your future. Sometimes people return because they miss access. Sometimes they return because they sense you are moving on. Sometimes they return because they are lonely. Sometimes they return because they have not found another person who will tolerate what you tolerated. And sometimes people genuinely return because they have changed. But change must be demonstrated. Do not accept a new promise as proof of a new character. Watch the fruit. Watch the consistency. Watch what happens after the emotions settle. Chosen one, you do not need to be cruel to be wise. You do not need to expose every secret. You do not need to publicly shame anyone. You do not need to prove to the world that you were right. Sometimes your greatest victory is simply becoming unavailable for what once destroyed your peace. Let God deal with what you cannot control. Your responsibility is to guard your heart with wisdom, not hatred. If this man has lied to you, you do not need to become a liar. If he manipulated you, you do not need to become manipulative. If he betrayed you, you do not need to become incapable of trust. Do not allow somebody else's darkness to rewrite your character. Chosen one, there may be a temptation to stay because you believe leaving means you failed. But sometimes leaving is not failure. Sometimes leaving is obedience to wisdom. Sometimes closing a door is not losing a blessing. Sometimes it is refusing to lose yourself. You are not required to stay in a relationship simply because you once prayed for it. You are not required to remain committed to a version of someone that no longer exists. You are not required to carry a relationship alone. And you are not required to sacrifice your mental, emotional, spiritual, or physical safety to prove that your love is genuine. If there is abuse, threats, coercion, stalking, or fear for your safety, seek help from trusted people and appropriate local services. Wisdom is not weakness. Getting support is not a lack of faith. Chosen one, remember that discernment does not always announce itself with thunder. Sometimes it comes as a quiet realization that you have been ignoring the obvious. Sometimes it is the moment you finally admit, "I have been making excuses." Sometimes it is the moment you stop asking, "Oh, can I make him change?" and start asking, "What choice do I need to make?" Sometimes the answer is not to confront him. Sometimes the answer is to step back. Sometimes the answer is to stop explaining. Sometimes the answer is simply to watch. Because when you stop trying to manage another person's behavior, their true character often becomes easier to see. Chosen one, be careful of the man who wants your loyalty but refuses accountability. Be careful of the man who expects understanding but offers none. Be careful of the man who demands honesty while keeping secrets. Be careful of the man who speaks about respect while disrespecting your boundaries. Be careful of the man who wants forgiveness without transformation. Be careful of the man who repeatedly wounds you and then blames you for bleeding. And most importantly, be careful of the man who makes you believe that losing him would mean losing your future. Your future does not belong to him. Your identity does not belong to him. Your purpose does not belong to him. Your relationship with God does not belong to him. Your peace does not belong to him. No human being should become the substitute for the God you trust. Chosen one, maybe this is why the warning feels so personal. Maybe you have been placing too much weight on his opinion. Maybe one compliment from him can lift you, and one cold response from him can destroy your entire day. Maybe you have been waiting for him to validate what God already placed inside you. But you cannot build your identity on another person's approval. If he stays, you are still worthy. If he leaves, you are still worthy. If he chooses you, you are still worthy. If he rejects you, you are still worthy. Your worth was never created by his attention. And if a person only values you when you are useful to them, then what they value is your function, not your soul. Chosen one, do not let loneliness convince you that confusion is companionship. There is a difference between being alone and being abandoned. Sometimes solitude is where clarity returns. Sometimes distance gives your mind room to hear what constant emotional noise has been drowning out. You may discover that you are not missing him as much as you were missing the person you hoped he would become. You may discover that you were attached to potential. You may discover that you were loyal to memories while living in a reality that had already changed. And when you finally see that clearly, you may feel grief. Let yourself grieve. Healing does not require you to pretend that you never cared. You can mourn what you wanted without returning to what harmed you. Chosen one, remember that God can redirect your path without explaining every detail immediately. You may not understand why a door closed. You may not understand why a relationship ended. You may not understand why someone you believed was important suddenly became distant. But not every unanswered question needs to become a reason to reopen a closed door. Sometimes clarity comes after obedience. Sometimes understanding comes after distance. Sometimes you only recognize the protection once you are safely beyond the danger. So do not demand the entire map before taking the next wise step. Take the step you can see, slow down. Pray, observe, seek wise counsel, protect your boundaries, and allow time to reveal what urgency is trying to hide. Chosen one. There is something powerful about becoming a person who no longer needs to chase explanations from people who repeatedly create confusion. You begin to realize that peace does not always come from receiving an apology. Sometimes peace comes from accepting that you may never receive one. You may never get the confession. You may never hear the truth. You may never receive the closure you imagined. But you can still heal. You can still move forward. You can still become whole. You can still trust God. And you can still believe that your future is larger than one person's ability to recognize your value. Chosen one, if this man is truly meant to walk beside you, his character will have room to withstand examination. You will not have to protect him from every question. You will not have to constantly explain away his behavior. You will not have to convince yourself that disrespect is secretly love. Healthy relationships can survive honesty. Healthy relationships can survive boundaries. Healthy relationships can survive patience. Healthy relationships can survive accountability. If the relationship collapses the moment you ask for respect, then perhaps what collapsed was not love, but control. So listen carefully. Do not rush. Do not panic. Do not accuse without evidence. Do not condemn someone based only on a feeling. But do not ignore repeated evidence simply because you are emotionally attached. Hold your heart and your wisdom together. Pray, but also pay attention. Hope, but also observe. Love, but also maintain boundaries. Forgive, but do not surrender discernment. And when you finally see the truth clearly, have the courage to respond to the truth instead of the fantasy. Because chosen one, the warning may not be telling you to fear a man. It may be teaching you to stop fearing the idea of losing him. It may be teaching you that your peace is worth protecting, your boundaries are worth honoring, and your future is worth waiting for. It may be teaching you that the person who is truly healthy for you will not need to destroy your confidence to maintain his position in your life. So when you look at this man again, do not only ask, does he love me? I ask, what does his love produce in my life? Does it produce peace or constant confusion? Does it produce growth or stagnation? Does it produce courage or fear? Does it draw you toward wisdom or make you ignore reality? Does it honor your boundaries or constantly test them? Does it make you more yourself or slowly turn you into someone you do not recognize? These questions matter. Because sometimes the warning is not about what a man says he will do tomorrow. Sometimes the warning is about what he has already shown you today. And chosen one, if you have been praying for God to reveal what you cannot see, then do not be surprised when the answer begins with your eyes becoming open to what has been in front of you all along. Chosen one, now that your eyes are opening, do not rush to tell everyone what you have discovered. Not every revelation needs an announcement. Not every warning needs to become a public conversation. There are some things God reveals to you privately because He is preparing you to move differently, not because He wants you to create chaos. You do not have to expose every person who disappointed you. You do not have to gather an audience to validate what you already know. Sometimes the most powerful response to manipulation is silence, distance, and wisdom. Because when someone has become accustomed to controlling your reactions, they may become uncomfortable when you stop reacting. They may send another message. They may call unexpectedly. They may suddenly become extremely affectionate. They may remind you of the good times. They may tell you that you are misunderstanding them. They may accuse you of changing. And perhaps you have changed. Perhaps that is the entire point. Chosen one, you were never meant to remain the same person you were when you first encountered this man. You have grown. Your standards have changed. Your awareness has changed. Your understanding of yourself has changed. The things you tolerated years ago may no longer be acceptable to you today. And that does not make you difficult. It means you have learned. Growth often changes what you are willing to accept. You may remember a time when you thought love meant endless patience. You thought loving someone meant forgiving every offense, understanding every excuse, and waiting through every season of disappointment. But now you are beginning to understand that love without wisdom can become self-neglect. You can be compassionate and still have limits. You can be forgiving and still have standards. You can be patient without becoming passive. You can be kind without becoming available to everyone. Chosen one, there is a man who may have become comfortable with the version of you that always gave another chance. Every time he crossed a line, you moved the line. Every time he disappointed you, you lowered your expectations. Every time he broke your trust, you found another explanation. You called it grace. But perhaps God is teaching you the difference between grace and enabling. Grace does not require you to ignore consequences. Grace does not mean allowing the same destructive behavior to continue without accountability. Grace does not mean you must remain within reach of someone who repeatedly harms you. Sometimes grace looks like releasing someone into the consequences of their choices. Sometimes love looks like stepping back. Sometimes wisdom looks like refusing to participate in a cycle that keeps destroying both people. Chosen one, the man you need to be careful about may be someone who knows how to turn your empathy against you. He may tell you his entire history. He may explain every reason he behaves the way he does. He may tell you about everything that happened to him, every person who betrayed him, every wound he carries, every disappointment he experienced. And because you have a compassionate heart, you may think, maybe I can help him heal. But listen closely. You are not his savior. You are not his therapist. You are not responsible for repairing what you did not break. You can encourage someone to seek healing, but you cannot heal someone who refuses to take responsibility for their own healing. A painful past can explain behavior. It does not automatically excuse behavior. A wounded person can still wound others. A traumatized person can still manipulate. A lonely person can still lie. A broken person can still break hearts. Understanding the reason behind someone's behavior does not mean you must accept the behavior. Chosen one, never let someone's pain become a permanent permission slip for them to hurt you. There may be moments when he says, you know what I've been through, and your heart will want to respond with compassion. But you can say within yourself, yes, I understand what you have been through, but I also have to pay attention to what you are doing now. That is wisdom. That is maturity. That is discernment. Chosen one, another warning sign may be the way this man handles accountability. Watch what happens when you calmly bring up something that hurt you. Does he listen? Does he ask questions? Does he try to understand? Does he acknowledge his role? Or does the conversation somehow become about everything you have ever done wrong? Suddenly you are defending yourself. Suddenly your reaction becomes the main problem. Suddenly the original issue disappears. You came to discuss his behavior, and somehow you leave the conversation apologizing for having feelings. Do not overlook that pattern. A person who cannot tolerate accountability will eventually make you afraid to communicate. You will begin rehearsing every sentence before speaking. You will begin wondering whether your feelings are legitimate. You will begin keeping quiet to avoid conflict. You will begin shrinking, and eventually, you may become a stranger to yourself. Chosen one, healthy communication does not require you to disappear. You should be able to say, that hurt me. You should be able to say, I do not agree. You should be able to say, need space. You should be able to say, that behavior is not acceptable to me. You should be able to say, I need time to think. And you should not have to fear retaliation simply because you expressed yourself. If someone repeatedly punishes you for speaking honestly, pay attention. Your silence may be exactly what they want. Chosen one, sometimes manipulation does not look like aggression. Sometimes it looks like helplessness. The man may constantly portray himself as the victim. Every conflict is someone else's fault. Every failed relationship was caused by the other person. Every mistake happened because somebody misunderstood him. He is always misunderstood. He is always betrayed. He is always the one who was wronged. And somehow he is never responsible. Ask yourself, where is his accountability? A mature person can say, I was wrong. A mature person can say, I hurt you. A mature person can say, I need to change. A mature person does not need to be perfect, but he needs to be honest about his imperfections. Chosen one, perfection is not the standard. Integrity is. You are not looking for a man who never makes mistakes. You are looking for someone who can recognize mistakes, learn from them, repair damage, and make better choices. Because everyone will disappoint you at some point. Everyone will misunderstand you. Everyone will have moments when they fail. The question is not whether failure happens. The question is what happens afterward. Does he become defensive? Does he disappear? Does he blame you? Does he minimize what happened? Or does he take responsibility and demonstrate change? That distinction can save you years of confusion. Chosen one, be careful of the man who gives you affection immediately after causing pain, because he may be trying to replace accountability with emotional intensity. You have an argument. Then suddenly he becomes incredibly romantic. He sends long messages. He says he cannot live without you. He tells you that you are the only person who understands him. He promises everything will change. You become emotional. You forgive him. And then the same pattern returns. This cycle can become addictive because the relief after conflict feels powerful. The reconciliation can feel like proof of love. But intensity is not always intimacy. Sometimes what feels like an extraordinary connection is simply the emotional roller coaster created by instability. Peace can feel unfamiliar when you have become accustomed to emotional extremes. Chosen one, do not mistake chaos for passion. You do not need constant uncertainty to prove that something is meaningful. You do not need to cry every week to prove that you care. You do not need to fear losing someone in order to love them deeply. Healthy love may actually feel quieter. It may feel steady. It may feel predictable in a good way. It may not constantly demand that you decode someone's behavior. You may not wake up wondering which version of the person you will meet today. You may not spend hours analyzing a message. You may not need to ask your friends what they think every time he behaves strangely. There is a kind of peace that comes when someone's words and actions consistently agree. Chosen one, that consistency matters. Anyone can be good for 3 days. Anyone can be attentive for 2 weeks. Anyone can promise change after a crisis, but time reveals patterns. Give people enough time to demonstrate who they are. Do not build a permanent future based on temporary behavior. Do not make lifelong decisions because someone had a good month. Watch what happens over seasons. Watch what happens when life becomes difficult. Watch what happens when there is no reward for doing the right thing. Watch what happens when nobody is watching. That is where character becomes visible. Chosen one, you may also need to watch how this man speaks about women from his past. Does he describe every former partner as crazy? Does he claim every woman betrayed him? Does he speak with contempt about people he once claimed to love? Be careful. One day you may become part of the same story. A person who never learns from previous relationships is likely to repeat the same patterns in the next one. And if every former partner is supposedly the villain, ask yourself why he is always the innocent hero. Perhaps there is more to the story. You do not need to investigate someone's entire history like a detective, but you should listen carefully to how they talk about people who are no longer useful to them. Because the way someone treats an ex after the relationship ends can reveal something about how they will treat you when you are no longer serving their desires. Chosen one, watch how he handles rejection. This is extremely important. Anyone can appear respectful when they are receiving what they want. But what happens when you say no? What happens when you disagree? What happens when you decide not to answer immediately? What happens when you need space? What happens when you do not choose him? A healthy person may be disappointed. A healthy person may feel hurt, but he understands that your freedom belongs to you. A controlling person may react very differently. He may pressure you. He may guilt trip you. He may insult you. He may threaten to leave and then return. He may attempt to make you jealous. He may involve other people. He may try to punish you emotionally. And if that happens, do not romanticize it. That is not evidence of deep love. Sometimes it is evidence that someone believes your decision should belong to them. Chosen one, you have to remember that love without freedom is not the kind of love you should build your life around. You are allowed to choose. You are allowed to reconsider. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to say no. And your no does not need to become a negotiation. Your boundaries are not invitations for someone to convince you otherwise. Chosen one, perhaps the warning is also about a man who appears whenever you are vulnerable. He knows exactly when to come back. When you are lonely, he appears. When you are disappointed, he calls. When you are finally moving forward, he suddenly remembers everything he loves about you. Ask yourself why. Is he truly interested in building something healthy? Or does he simply know when your defenses are low? There is a difference. Someone who genuinely cares about you will not need you to be emotionally weak before approaching you. Someone who respects you will not wait until you are desperate for comfort to make promises. He will show consistency when you are strong and when you are vulnerable. Chosen one, never make major decisions from a place of emotional exhaustion. If you are lonely, do not let loneliness choose your partner. If you are angry, do not let anger choose your next move. If you are heartbroken, do not let desperation choose who gets access to you. Give yourself time. Let your emotions settle. Sometimes the loudest feelings are not the clearest guidance. You can feel deeply and still wait. You can care deeply and still say no. You can miss someone and still know that returning is not wise. Chosen one, there may also be a man who competes with you in ways you did not notice at first. He may compliment you while subtly diminishing you. He may celebrate your success and then immediately compare it to his own. He may joke about your intelligence, your appearance, your dreams, your accomplishments, and then say, "I was only joking." But jokes can reveal attitudes. Pay attention to what keeps being disguised as humor. If someone repeatedly makes you feel smaller and then blames you for not having a sense of humor, do not ignore the pattern. A healthy partner does not need to reduce you to feel tall. He can celebrate your excellence without feeling threatened. He can admire your gifts without competing against them. He can support your dreams without trying to control them. He can be proud of you without making your success about himself. Chosen one, there is a man who may want your attention but not your advancement. He wants you emotionally available, but he does not want you spiritually mature. He wants your loyalty, but he does not want your questions. He wants your affection, but he does not want your boundaries. He wants your future, but he does not want to build the character necessary to deserve it. Do not give someone the benefits of commitment while they refuse the responsibilities of commitment. Let actions speak. Let consistency speak. Let time speak. Chosen one. You may have been taught that being a good person means always giving people another chance. But there are times when another chance becomes another opportunity for the same behavior. Forgiveness can be immediate. Trust may take time. Reconciliation requires more than an apology. Restoration requires evidence. Do not confuse these things. If someone breaks trust, you are not required to pretend that trust instantly returns because they said, "I'm sorry." An apology can open the door to healing. Changed behavior is what walks through it. Chosen one, if you find yourself constantly asking whether you are overreacting, stop for a moment and examine why you have reached that point. Maybe you have been repeatedly told that your concerns are irrational. Maybe someone has conditioned you to distrust your own perception. Maybe you have become so accustomed to being dismissed that you now dismiss yourself before anyone else gets the opportunity. This is why self-awareness matters. Ask yourself what actually happened. Write down the facts. Separate facts from assumptions. Talk to someone trustworthy who is not emotionally invested in the outcome. Pray for wisdom. Then look at the pattern. You do not need to build your decision on one emotional moment. Build it on what repeatedly occurs. Chosen one. Sometimes the answer becomes obvious when you stop listening only to what someone says and begin watching what your life looks like around them. Are you becoming more peaceful? Are you becoming more confident? Are you becoming more focused? Are you becoming healthier? Are you becoming closer to God? Are you becoming more honest? Or are you constantly anxious, distracted, exhausted, insecure, and emotionally drained? The relationship itself may be giving you information. Pay attention to the fruit, because the fruit of a relationship matters. Chosen one, a man can say, "I want the best for you." But if his presence consistently pulls you away from your values, that statement should be examined. A man can say, "I support your dreams." But if he becomes resentful whenever you pursue them, watch his behavior. A man can say, "Trust you." But if he constantly monitors you, interrogates you, and demands access to everything, his actions are telling another story. A man can say, "Love you." But if his love repeatedly produces fear, confusion, and instability, you have the right to question whether the relationship is healthy. Words matter, but actions provide evidence. Chosen one, do not allow beautiful language to hypnotize you. Some people are gifted communicators. Some people know how to create emotional experiences. Some people can make ordinary moments sound like destiny. They can tell you that you met for a reason. They can describe your connection as rare. They can tell you they have never felt this way before. And maybe they genuinely feel those things. But feelings alone do not create character. A person can sincerely love you and still be unhealthy for you. A person can sincerely care about you and still lack the maturity required for a healthy relationship. Intentions matter, but outcomes matter too. If someone repeatedly hurts you while insisting that they never meant to, eventually you must consider the impact. Chosen one, you are allowed to say, "I believe you did not intend to hurt me, but I cannot continue living with the result." That sentence carries wisdom, because you do not have to prove malicious intent before establishing a boundary. You do not need courtroom-level evidence to decide what you will tolerate in your own life. Your boundary can simply be based on what you have experienced. Chosen one, be especially careful when someone tries to rush the relationship. Sometimes intensity arrives before genuine knowledge. He may speak about marriage immediately. He may make huge promises before he has demonstrated consistency. He may tell you that you are his soulmate before he truly knows your character, your values, your weaknesses, or how you handle conflict. Do not let speed convince you that something is deeper than it is. Healthy relationships have room to breathe. You can take time. You can observe. You can learn. You can ask questions. You can see how someone behaves across different circumstances. You do not need to know the entire future today. And if someone becomes angry because you will not move at his preferred speed, that reaction is worth noticing. Pressure can be a warning. Chosen one, the man God is warning you about may not be the man you expected. You may have imagined the warning would involve someone obviously evil, someone aggressive, someone who openly displays bad intentions. But sometimes the warning is about the person who looks perfect on paper, the one everyone likes, the one your friends admire, the one who knows what to say, the one who seems successful, the one who looks respectable, the one who knows how to present himself. That is why you cannot rely only on appearances. You need discernment, you need time, you need observation, and you need the courage to trust what consistent evidence reveals. Chosen one, do not allow other people's opinions to override your experience. Your friends may love him. Your family may praise him. Everyone around you may say, "You are lucky to have him." But they do not live your private reality. They may only see the public version. You are the one who experiences the private conversations. You are the one who knows how you feel after the calls end. You are the one who knows what happens behind closed doors. And if something is wrong, you are allowed to take it seriously even when everyone else thinks everything is fine. You do not need unanimous approval to protect yourself. Chosen one, this is where courage becomes necessary. Because sometimes leaving the wrong person means disappointing people who thought the relationship was perfect. Sometimes choosing peace means being misunderstood. Sometimes establishing boundaries means being called selfish. Sometimes walking away means people accuse you of giving up too easily. But they may not understand what you had to endure to reach that decision. Do not let people who only saw the photograph judge the entire story. God sees what happens when nobody else is present. And you must learn to honor what you know rather than constantly seeking permission from people who do not know the whole truth. Chosen one, there is another thing: you must guard your finances, your personal information, your private documents, and your independence. Love does not require you to surrender your ability to function independently. Be wise about money. Be cautious about financial commitments. Do not allow emotional pressure to make you sign things, transfer money, share sensitive information, or take on responsibilities that you do not fully understand. A relationship should not require you to abandon practical wisdom. If someone loves you, they should want you to be informed. They should not pressure you into decisions by saying, "If you trusted me, you would do it." A trust does not mean turning off your judgment. Chosen one, protect your physical safety too. If a person has shown aggression, made threats, stalked you, threatened self-harm to control your decisions, damaged property, or made you afraid of what will happen if you leave, treat that seriously and seek appropriate support. You do not need to confront someone alone simply because you feel you owe them an explanation. Your safety comes first. There is no spiritual virtue in placing yourself unnecessarily in danger. Wisdom includes knowing when to step back and seek help. Chosen one, you may be entering a season where God is separating you from people who cannot accompany you into your next chapter. Separation does not always mean hatred. Sometimes people simply no longer fit the direction of your life. The relationship may have served a purpose. The lesson may have been real. The memories may have been meaningful. But that does not mean the relationship must continue forever. You can honor what was without returning to it. You can be grateful for what you learned without reopening the door. You can acknowledge that someone mattered without deciding that they belong in your future. This is difficult for a tender heart, but it is necessary. Chosen one, sometimes the person you need to release is the person you once prayed would change. You prayed for his heart. You prayed for his maturity. You prayed that he would understand. You prayed that he would finally recognize your value. And perhaps the answer to those prayers is not that he changes while you remain. Perhaps the answer is that you change. You stop waiting. You stop chasing. You stop explaining. You stop trying to convince someone to become the person you hoped he would be. You release the outcome, and you allow God to work without making yourself responsible for the process. Chosen one, there is freedom in that. You do not have to carry another adult's choices on your back. You do not have to spend every night wondering how to make someone love you correctly. You do not have to keep searching for the perfect words that will finally make him understand. Sometimes people understand perfectly well. They simply do not want to change. And once you recognize that, your responsibility becomes much clearer. You can stop trying to solve what another person has chosen to continue. Chosen one, be careful of the man who only becomes kind when he fears losing you. Real character is not demonstrated by temporary improvement under pressure. Anyone can behave well when consequences are immediate. The question is what happens after he believes you are staying. Does the respect continue? Does the effort continue? Does the honesty continue? Does the accountability continue? Does the kindness remain when the fear of losing you disappears? That is where consistency matters. Because a relationship should not require you to threaten departure every few months before you receive basic respect. You should not have to constantly convince someone that your boundaries matter. Chosen one, you may have been accustomed to fighting for relationships. Perhaps you learned early that love requires endurance. Perhaps you saw people remain together through everything and thought that leaving was always a failure. But there is a difference between endurance and endless suffering. There is a difference between commitment and captivity. There is a difference between patience and postponing the inevitable. There is a difference between fighting for someone and fighting against their unwillingness to change. You can fight for a relationship when both people are fighting for it. You cannot carry two people's responsibility. Chosen one, if you are the only one apologizing, something is wrong. If you are the only one initiating difficult conversations, something is wrong. If you are the only one making sacrifices, something is wrong. If you are the only one trying to repair the relationship, something is wrong. If you are always the one compromising while he always gets his way, something is wrong. A healthy relationship requires mutual responsibility, not perfect equality in every moment, because life is seasons, but mutual willingness, mutual respect, mutual effort, Mutual accountability. Chosen one, perhaps God is teaching you not only who to avoid but what standard to develop. The warning about one man may actually be preparing you to recognize healthier character in the future. You are learning what consistency looks like. You are learning what respect looks like. You are learning what accountability looks like. You are learning what peace feels like. You are learning that someone can disagree with you without humiliating you. You are learning that someone can love you without controlling you. You are learning that someone can desire you without possessing you. You are learning that someone can be close to you without invading every part of your life. You are learning that healthy love does not require you to abandon yourself. Chosen one, this lesson may become one of the most valuable things you ever learn. Because once you know your value, manipulation becomes harder. Once you know your boundaries, pressure becomes easier to recognize. Once you understand consistency, empty promises lose their power. Once you learn to observe actions, charming words stop being enough. Once you become comfortable with your own company, loneliness loses its ability to force you into unhealthy relationships. And once you understand that your future is not dependent on one person, you become much harder to control. Chosen one, this is why the season may feel uncomfortable. You are becoming harder to deceive because you are becoming more honest with yourself. You are no longer willing to call disrespect love. You are no longer willing to call inconsistency busy. You are no longer willing to call manipulation concern. You are no longer willing to call jealousy protection. You are no longer willing to call control commitment. You are learning to name things accurately. And there is power in accurate language. When you can name the pattern, you can finally respond to it. Chosen one, perhaps this man has been counting on your confusion. Perhaps he benefits when you cannot explain what feels wrong. Perhaps he knows that if he keeps everything ambiguous, you will continue giving him the benefit of the doubt. So clarity becomes your protection. Do not focus only on what he says he feels. Ask what he consistently does. Do not focus only on what he promises. Ask what he has repeatedly demonstrated. Do not focus only on what you hope. Ask what is actually happening. This is not cynicism. This is wisdom. Chosen one, you can remain soft without remaining knave. You can have a good heart without giving everyone unrestricted access. You can believe in people without ignoring evidence. You can hope for the best while preparing yourself to respond to the truth. You can forgive while maintaining boundaries. You can love without losing yourself. And you can trust God while using the wisdom He has given you. So if the man you have been thinking about suddenly changes his behavior, do not immediately assume the warning has disappeared. Watch. Give time room to speak. Let consistency prove what words cannot. If he truly changed, time will reveal it. If he is only performing, time will reveal that too. You do not need to force the answer. You do not need to chase the evidence. You do not need to manipulate the situation to see what happens. Step back, observe, and allow character to speak. Chosen one, there may come a moment when this man realizes that he no longer has the same access to you. He may become surprised. He may ask what happened. He may say you are different. And perhaps your answer is simple. You are different. You have grown. You have prayed. You have watched. You have listened. You have survived things you once thought would destroy you. You have discovered parts of yourself that you did not know existed. And now you cannot return to the version of yourself that accepted less simply because you were afraid of being alone. Chosen one, never apologize for becoming wiser. Never apologize for becoming more discerning. Never apologize for protecting what God is building inside you. Never apologize for choosing peace. And never allow someone's disappointment to become the reason you betray your own convictions. Because the moment you abandon yourself to keep someone else happy, you begin paying a price that becomes heavier with time. You start losing your voice, then your confidence, then your clarity, then your identity. And eventually, you may look in the mirror and wonder where the person you used to be went. Do not wait until that point. Listen while the warning is still quiet. Pay attention while the signs are still manageable. Choose wisdom before the situation becomes a crisis. Chosen one, you are not being asked to become suspicious of everyone. You are being asked to become intentional about who receives access to your heart. There are good men. There are honest men. There are men who respect boundaries. There are men who take responsibility. There are men who genuinely want to see you flourish. There are men who can love without controlling. There are men who can apologize without manipulating. There are men who can disagree without disrespecting. There are men who can lead without dominating. There are men who can be strong without making you feel small. So do not allow one unhealthy relationship to convince you that everyone is dangerous. The goal is not fear. The goal is discernment. Chosen one, perhaps the greatest warning is not simply, be careful of this man. Perhaps it is, be careful not to abandon your discernment, because you desperately want this man to be the one. That is where many people lose themselves. They decide who they want someone to be and then interpret everything through that desire. They see red flags and call them misunderstandings. They see inconsistency and call it timing. They see disrespect and call it stress. They see manipulation and call it passion. They see control and call it protection. They see emotional instability and call it deep connection. But when you stop naming darkness as light, your choices become clearer. Chosen one, let truth be truth. If something is healthy, it can withstand examination. If something is unhealthy, examination will expose it. You do not need to fear the truth. The truth may hurt for a moment, but deception can cost years. The truth may require a difficult decision, but denial can require a lifetime of consequences, so choose truth. Even when it breaks your heart, choose truth. Even when it changes your plans, choose truth. Even when other people do not understand, because truth gives you something manipulation never can: freedom. And chosen one, perhaps this is where your next level of discernment begins. Not by becoming harder, colder, or more suspicious, but by becoming deeply grounded in who you are, what you believe, what you will accept, and what you will no longer negotiate. Because when you know your values, you can recognize when someone is asking you to compromise them. When you know your boundaries, you can recognize when someone keeps testing them. When you know your purpose, you can recognize when someone repeatedly pulls you away from it. And when you know the difference between peace and confusion, you stop chasing every person who creates intensity and start paying attention to the people whose presence allows you to breathe.